President Obama is leading a wholesale purging of military leadership, and no one knows why the moves are taking place. 9 senior generals have lost their commands so far this year. Up to 200 other military leaders have been removed from the positions by the president in the last 5 years. A growing number of retired generals are questioning the reasons behind the removals. A few former leaders say the administration is removing military leaders who may have policy differences with Obama. What these differences are is unknown. The former generals and admirals say the president is also using dismissals to scare those who remain into complying with his policies. One former Navy SEAL is telling the press the president is removing military leaders who will not agree to disarm Americans. So far, the White House has been quiet about the moves. Officials only speak to specific replacements for infractions of military discipline. The rate at which Obama is removing military leaders from their positions is being described as a purge. Perhaps there are good reasons for the large number of dismissals. It is possible the moves are being made in response to better reporting of violations. But until the White House addresses the issue directly, the public and military will question why the moves are taking place. History shows bad things can happen when the leader of his nation takes a military purge.
President Obama has relieved U.S. Army Colonel Eric Tilley of duty, citing misconduct. The move was made soon after a group of retired generals described a purge of military leaders by Obama. The president has removed 9 generals and flag officers from duty so far this year. Nearly 200 military commanders have been forced from their positions in the last 5 years.
News, WorldNet Daily and Anthony Gucciardi are reporting that top generals reveal that Obama's secret high-level military purges. Retired Army Major General Patrick Brady says that the attack on high-level military personnel is so great that it has now obliterated the morale of troops at large, but more importantly, it's centered in terminating any high-level individual that will not go along with the plan. He said there is no doubt that Obama is intent on emasculating the military and will fire anyone who disagrees with him. Another retired general, Army Lieutenant General William Jerry Boykin, who was with Delta Force, said over the past 3 years, it is unprecedented for the number of 4-star generals to be relieved of duty and not necessarily relieved for cause, he said. I believe there is a purging of the military. The problem is worse than we have ever seen. Now, this comes on the heels of what Anthony Gucciardi pointed out in his article. He extended it to the nuclear transfer incident that we reported on at Dyess Air Force Base and the fact that it was unprecedented that the second in command would be fired over a trivial cause, just $1,500 in counterfeit gambling chips reportedly. But that happened on the same day that we reported the secret transfer from Dyess Air Force Base, where there are not supposed to be any nuclear bombs. And then it got even stranger because the top general in charge of nuclear weapons was then fired, not for a cause, not for any moral shortcomings, but simply because of his performance in a temporary job assignment, it said. Now, I wonder what kind of a temporary job assignment the top commander of the nuclear weapons would be under. So this is a story that continues to unfold. We see an unprecedented number of military personnel being purged, and they're saying they're being purged because they don't agree with Obama's philosophies.
Back. Top story headline: General blames Night Stalker for military purge. Now, who is the Night Stalker? It's Valerie Jarrett, a top Obama advisor. Jarrett, a Chicago lawyer with far-left roots, is one of Obama's closest advisors and has been throughout his career, well before his presidential campaign and Oval Office occupancy. Now, if you want a more thorough breakdown of the 200-plus military personnel who have been purged under Obama, we will go to this clip from today from the Alex Jones radio show.
And you've got well over 200. WorldNet Daily says 200. It's well over 200. Top military brass being purged. And the big issue is, in most cases, they won't say why, and then they give them orders under national security to not say why. And then I talk to high-level brass, and they say, no, it's the litmus test. Will you do gun confiscation during a collapse? And they're pre-deploying the troops. They're training them for unprecedented riot control. They're training them the Tea Party's their enemy. That's in Forbes and AP. I mean, it's all there is my point. It dizzies my mind to try to think of all the public intel. I mean, it is more than 100% documented. And you say, well, how can it be more than 100%? There's so many angles to it, so many different plans within plans they've got. There's like 500, 600% proof because there's different battle plans and different variants and different stratas and different competing globalist groups and different operations. It'd be like if a coach said, I'm trying to get you outside one-dimensional thinking or two-dimensional thinking, folks. It'd be like if a coach said, yeah, we've got one play in the playbook. That's one-dimensional. They got a whole playbook of stuff. And we've got all their different plans. People say, well, that's just plans. Yeah, these are unprecedented plans. And the enemy isn't the Russians. It isn't the Chinese communist. It isn't. No, it's the American people, folks. Their own battle plans, their own main mission statements in Stars and Stripes and Army Times and everywhere is that the American people are the enemy, and now there is an unprecedented, in 236 years of U.S. history, gigantor purge of anyone who is not seen as a total communist.
And I recognize this is heavy news for those in the military. You may want to speak out, but you also recognize you could be caught up in the current purge. So do what you think is best for you in this current situation.
President Obama has relieved U.S. Army Colonel Eric Tilley of duty, citing misconduct. The move was made soon after a group of retired generals described a purge of military leaders by Obama. The president has removed 9 generals and flag officers from duty so far this year. Nearly 200 military commanders have been forced from their positions in the last 5 years.
Well, what we're concerned about is a president who acts as if he were God. And one of the places that Obama is trying to instill fear is in the ranks of the military. Leanne McAdoo has more for us.
That's absolutely right, David. The Obama administration has just fired the 10th military commander this year.
Oh, wow.
This guy was in charge of the largest military base in Japan, and he was let go because of a lack of confidence. That was all the details they had given there. So.
That's not very specific.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not going to release further because there was no findings that he had any criminal misconduct. So that's kind of where they're leaving it. But basically, we're definitely seeing that he is purging the military of anyone who does not go along with his communist agenda. Anyone who questions the official line that he's given to the American people and the media. Of the 9 others that were fired, 3 of those generals were either critical of or directly involved with the scandal that happened in Benghazi. In one case, the U.S. Army General Ham, he was commanding the U.S. African Command when the consulate was attacked. He was highly critical of the decision by the State Department not to send in reinforcements. He said reinforcements could have been sent in time. A second admiral who was also fired, he seconded that opinion. He said aircraft could have been sent to Libya in time to help the Americans, and he was later removed from his post for alleged profanity and making racially insensitive comments. So
these are very, very minor charges. They're not very specific. It's kind of like what we saw with the dismissal, unprecedented dismissal of these nuclear commanders, number 1 and number 2. When it happened to the number 2 guy, everybody said this is totally unprecedented. And then it happened to the number 1 guy for a reason that was even less believable, that he was on a special assignment somehow. How do you have the number 1 nuclear commander on a special assignment? They didn't like the way he performed.
No, yeah, if you don't like the way that Obama performs, you will be purged. And they are sending that message loud and clear through the military. But what we're seeing here is that people who are loyal to the Constitution, the military and our veterans, people who have sworn an oath to uphold the Constitution, those people are being relieved of duty. The people who are being replaced are people who are loyal to the president and loyal to Obama.
That's very troubling, because it's not just an issue. We want civilian control of the military, but we want civilian control by people who have taken an oath to defend the Constitution and really mean it. And, of course, we don't find anybody like that in Washington much, right?
Exactly.
It's not just the president. It's pretty much pervasive with everybody. They take these oaths, but they really don't really believe them, don't follow through on them.
Right, and Obama really takes advantage of the fact that the military adheres to that constitutional requirement to have a civilian leadership over the military. But he is no civilian. He is a tyrant. He acts like a tyrant, and he is bought and paid for by the New World Order. So we see that Obama has no problem firing high-ranking officials in the military, but he won't go after his own officials in his administration and investigate Benghazi.
And that's the key. It's Benghazi. That's what he wants to avoid people looking at in detail at all costs. That's something the military takes very seriously. They don't like being told to stand down and leave their personnel stranded to die. That's made a lot of people in the military angry throughout the ranks, and he's purging those ranks of people. That's not a scandal that's going to go away. That is something that is very serious that should take him out of office. Well, thank you, Leanne. Appreciate it. He wants robots in the military. That's what F. Michael Maloof talked about with Alex Jones on the radio show today.
Now, Michael Maloof joins us with some just amazing research. We're so thankful he could come on. Currently, he's a senior staff writer for WorldNetDaily.com, specializing in international political and economic analysis, former senior security policy analyst for the Office of the Secretary of Defense. Maloof has almost 30 years of federal service, 23 years of which was with the U.S. Defense Department. Are they really crazy enough to try to really destroy American credibility and get rid of us and maybe just sell out to the communist Chinese or something? I mean, I just look at it and everything points towards sell out America, and the globalists have power through America. And I've criticized that strategy. I don't like being that corrupt imp, but this is really bad.
And they're seeing some of these firings as being politically motivated. For example, the three generals that got canned right on the eve of right after Benghazi. The concern is that they were using the firings to deflect attention from this ongoing investigation on Benghazi, which is far from resolved. And as a consequence, there seems to be the notion of trying to hide things. We've had some CIA officers actually told, if you go up and testify, you're going to be removed from your jobs. So the intimidation is somewhat happening in the intelligence world, but it's also much more, and it's easier in the military world because these guys have to salute, take orders, and shut up.